Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown.
Hey, yo, it's the Building Downtown. You can follow us on social media at the Building DT. I'm your host, Jason Kelly. You can follow me at JKellyMMA. You can follow my co-host, Kirill Kasatskiy at Apostle Raps. You can follow my other co-host, Amy Barton at Ames Bell. 23rd of December, 2020. About a week left in this nightmare for most people that we've called a year. About 2 days out from Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you want to say. For my fellow Seinfeld fans, it's Happy Festivus for the rest of us. I, for one, love that show. I know Amy likes it. Krill absolutely despises it. And as far as the guest we have on today, we will find out in a minute how he feels about Seinfeld. This man has about 26 words in his professional job title, but being as humble as he is, he thinks we should just announce him, bring him on, introduce him by his first name. So we'll meet in the middle here. The doctor knocking out kidney disease, Dr. Faisal Rehman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's great to be back on.
So the big question before we get down to business, are you a fan of Seinfeld?
I'm sorry, what's the big question? I didn't quite catch you.
Are you a fan of the show Seinfeld?
I love the show Seinfeld. I'm pretty sure I've watched every single episode.
Yes, and for the Seinfeld fans, they all know Festivus. George Costanza's dad, celebrates his own holiday on December 23rd every year. You got to fight your father. You got to gather around so he can tell you how much you've disappointed him. It's a wonderful, wonderful episode, and I watched it about 6:30 this morning when I woke up. Now that that's out of the way.
I'm just going to hang up now.
When Krill comes over to hang out, he literally makes me change it if I'm watching Seinfeld. As soon as he walks in the door, can this go off, please? He's not a fan.
He's a terrible
I don't know
human.
why it doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the three of us, as most of the listeners know, I'm sure there'll be people that aren't familiar with this. Krill and I are in Ontario, Canada. Amy is down in the States. Faisal is located in London, the London area of Ontario. Let's start with Ontario. We're going into lockdown December 26th. People are back and forth on this, whether they're in the medical field, whether just regular everyday people, whatever it may be. In your opinion, do you think this lockdown is necessary?
So I'm biased, okay, because I'm living the dream right now. I'm not celebrating Festivus as I usually do.
Okay.
We're in the middle of a major outbreak at my hospital. I'm site chief of medicine at University Hospital, and we just are coming to a major COVID-19 outbreak. At one point, we had over 55 patients admitted to our hospital with COVID-19. We literally shut down the hospital, and we were diverting admissions to other surrounding hospitals in our area. And it's been a nightmare, a living nightmare. People have died and have suffered greatly because of this. And so, I come from a completely different perspective now. And, compared to the first wave, the second wave has really kicked us in the ass. And so, keeping that in mind, by us, even just within our own hospital setting, shutting down, diverting admissions, cohorting patients to specific wards, we've been able to get our numbers down to 10 patients only in the hospital with COVID-19. Many of our wards are now out of outbreak, but we're in a constant state of perpetual emergency, because if we get another outbreak, it's going to impair our ability to do kidney transplants or heart transplants or heart surgeries or cancer surgeries that some people have been waiting months to receive. So keep that in mind whenever I talk to you about my opinion on lockdowns, because I've seen firsthand people suffering with this condition. And for the first time, even in the combat sports community within Canada, people who are super athletes in good shape, undefeated records in boxing, for example, are hospitalized with COVID-19. So this is not just a disease of old people. I'm seeing athletes, I'm seeing younger people without any comorbidities getting close to being intubated in the ICU on a ventilator. And once you're on a ventilator, your mortality is super high. So
Wow.
Come back to your question about lockdown. Yeah, I don't know if I like that term. We were talking about that with one of my friends recently about whether that's the appropriate term, but we need to be safe. And unfortunately, this condition is extremely contagious, and the only way we can slow down the spread of this is by limiting social activities, minimizing people being in contact with each other, shutting down the schools, shutting down shopping areas and such. And hopefully this vaccine that we now have available will help provide immunity so that 6 to 9 months from now, we can start returning to normal.
So I know the thought process, but what is the general feeling on, okay, there's going to be a lockdown, but we're not going to do it yet. We're going to let you wait until the day after Christmas. So in the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. And then on the 26th, shit's getting serious. That seems weird to me.
You know what? I know, I love it. And, people make shit up as they go. So the infection control people that surround me, our public health people, I know they're trying their best, but it is frustrating for physicians especially, and I'm sure for our nursing colleagues as well, and our other healthcare professionals, that when you make decisions that are not based on scientific evidence. So, for example, if you work in my hospital, at one point they were requiring that you work quarantine. So after I work in the hospital, I'm supposed to go home, go into my basement, lock myself in my basement, and not come out until I'm going back to work again. Or and I can't go to the grocery store and such like that. And, if you've got a family, maybe that's okay. But if you're single, that's really quite tough. And one of my doctors certainly is having a very difficult time with that. And there's no scientific evidence to support doing that kind of thing. People were told to stay in hotels and do this, stay away from your kids, and again, not based on a lot of evidence. So I think when you say, yeah, we'll let you not go into lockdown until the 26th, that's a bit very strange. And I think I can't explain why people make certain decisions. However,
do you think
it's easy to be critical? I think that we've been learning as we go with this condition, and I think that some form of minimizing transmission of this condition is important. And I think we have to take advantage of the Christmas holidays. You know what? Things calm down anyways. It's time to kind of reflect, and we're not at work. And so let's shut down the schools for a little bit longer. Let's shut down the workplace for a little bit longer. Let's shut down restaurants for a little bit longer. Let's try and flatten the curve, as they use that term quite often, and get the immunizations done to the vulnerable population. And that'll really help. What we're really trying to do is not prevent, this condition is going to spread, right? But we're trying to slow it down so that our healthcare system can absorb the patients who are developing the disease into the healthcare system, so we don't run out of ICU beds. We don't run out of breathing machines like they did in Italy and New York and other places, and we can provide care to our patients. That's what we're really trying to do.
Do you think that shopping and big box stores, do you think the CEOs could influence the decision of healthcare providers or professionals, by making the lockdown on 26th and not right away because it's spiking right now, saying, that's it, let's shut it down tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't
what
know.
I'm trying to say is, do you think money influences the healthcare system?
Yeah, I think money influences politicians. It doesn't
Right,
influence my decision. It doesn't influence the hospitals, actually. We do. So we take our orders from public health, and we do what public health tells us to do. In fact, they have a tremendous amount of power over us. So if and we've disagreed with a lot of the public health individual decisions at times. We haven't always been in agreement, but they have the mandate to decide how we behave in our hospital system and how we behave in our community. So they're the ones with the power. I think the good thing about them is they don't really care about the money part and the businesses and such. But I do think politicians care. So the politicians are the ones who are going to get it from the small business owners, from the restaurants, from the gym owners. They're the ones who are going to hear it, right? So if anybody has any sort of pressure on them, it's them. We in the hospital system, we take our orders from the public health people. And if they tell us to close down our hospital, we close it down and we abide by their rules. And honestly, it has helped. We went from having over 60 cases, we're down to 10. And hopefully we will be out of outbreaks soon and we'll be able to take care of patients again.
With this, with the lockdown, it's not a flat out lockdown. The stores are restricted, but with the restrictions, limited capacity, things like that, the big question you see people say is, well, what the hell? Why can't I have people at my house for Christmas, but you can fill a Walmart full of people? is there a certain responsibility that should be put on store owners and businesses to limit people to what they actually say? Because I was at the grocery store the other day in a small little meat section area. There was probably 20 people. Krill was actually with me. And I mean, it's like a hallway shaped like a U. And there was probably at least 20 people stuffed in there. I know we're not quite in lockdown yet, but that's still not even taking proper precautions, I'd say. So do you think there's a certain amount of onus on the businesses to do their part?
Absolutely. I mean, the rules need to be applied uniformly. The people I actually feel the worst for right now are gym owners and restaurant owners. How can a restaurant maintain any sort of business by only having a maximum of 10 people in their facilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them have had to revert to delivery service and trying kind of novel ways to try and increase their business, but that doesn't work for a lot of restaurants, especially fine dining, etc. So pickup and delivery is not an option for everyone. They're suffering the worst. Okay, many restaurants of my favorite restaurants have closed down, never to be reopened again in my area. Grocery stores are unique in that food is a necessity, but the grocery store near my home makes you go into a big long lineup before you can enter the store. They control the number of people in the store. I've never seen 20 people at my butcher meat section ever when I've gone in to shop there. And so that business owner should unfortunately likely be fined. Honestly, that's not appropriate to have 20 people surrounding a meat area or whatever it may be.
Oh, it was like a mash pit.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say I agree with you that I think the business owners need to be held accountable, and they should be fined if that's happening.
Krill, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that store was like a mash pit. You know what I mean? People were crawling all over each other because the command was given that the 26th everything's shut down, so now everybody's out buying toilet paper, right?
Yeah, and a panic. It's the same thing with the toilet paper crisis and this crisis and that crisis. People unfortunately start to hoard things, and fear takes over. And I think I think we have to remain calm, and most people are. We have to wear our masks. We have to social distance, and we will beat this. There's no doubt in my mind we will beat this. But we need to be responsible in how we behave. And so having big social parties like they were in the United States, or big political gatherings, and no mask wearing and being all tough, for the most part, you're putting your grandparents and your parents with comorbidities at risk. But young people also suffer, and young people will die too, not at the same rate, but they will. And I've certainly witnessed that myself. So I do think we need to take advantage of this holiday period. We do need to go through this quote-unquote lockdown, if that's what it's called, and take advantage of the holiday period, get people vaccinated. At my center, we're starting the vaccines on Christmas Eve. So our healthcare providers with the highest risk are getting vaccinated. And we'll start vaccinating long-term care facilities as well, and vulnerable populations. And then hopefully, honestly, if we can all be careful and do our thing, 6 to 9 months from now, we'll be in a lot better situation.
So forgive me in advance for being the only non-Canadian present here, but one of the most stark contrasts and like Jason and I have talked about this ad nauseum, I see it online, you see it everywhere if you're looking for it, I suppose, which I do. The biggest contrast I see over and over again, and it's not specific to COVID, I guess, but it really sticks out here, is the community part of it, right? And so the politicians you already talked about, they can be influenced. They oftentimes have their own agendas and all that. But the big thing that really sticks out to me, and you just said it before I could even ask you this question, is you guys don't seem up there to have these like crazy groups of people wanting to overthrow the government for trying to protect their health. Is that does that happen up there and I just don't see it because I'm not there, or because we're crazy down here? That's how that works.
No, you know what? I love Americans. I do. I love them. And maybe it's because I meet people who are similar to me. I'm very left-leaning, and so just to but I think the American people are beautiful people. I love going there. I've been to Texas, and I go to Arizona frequently, and Las Vegas, and people are super friendly. But it's just a different culture. Honestly, it's a completely different culture. They're very their constitution is completely different. Their philosophy on life is different. even forgetting healthcare, the right to own a weapon, for example. I mean, if you talk to the average Canadian, we don't want to have guns and stuff. And even though Canadians who love guns are people who live on the farms who love to hunt, and so it's a completely different culture. And the right to self-autonomy is something that Americans are very passionate about, right? And the fact that they want to be able to determine every single aspect of their life. When in real fact, we all do things that are better for society. We all obey seatbelt laws, and for the most part, wear seatbelts because we know it prevents morbidity and mortality, right? So we all obey certain laws and certain rules. And so, but in the United States, they're very, very passionate about not being told what to do, not, being told you have to get a vaccination, not being told you have to wear a mask, putting limits on their quality of life. And I don't know what to say about that. It's a completely different society compared to Canada. And if I don't talk to Americans about guns and vaccinations, I get along with them just fine. Like I can't differentiate a Canadian from an American. They're awesome people, right? But I suspect if I were I remember I was in Disney World with my son, and we were lining up to arrive, and this really nice old granny was talking to us. We were having a great chat, and President Obama came up somehow. I hate that guy. I wouldn't let him lick my shoe. And then I completely changed the conversation because I didn't want to get into the reasons as to why. So I think it's a different culture, and I think that plays a huge role as to what has happened in the United States with over 300,000 deaths, and I think it's been a disaster there in many ways. I think you'd agree it's been a disaster there in many ways, and especially for our older patients in the United States.
Agree. I've been leading the charge on telling everybody who will listen to me about what a disaster this dumpster fire is down here.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting because despite 300,000 deaths, despite all of the misery, all of the economic problems that have happened because of poor management of COVID-19, you still had an election where there was a close split. Like it wasn't people think it was a blowout for Biden. I don't think it was a blowout. 7 million votes is nothing. And the number of seats was actually, a lot of those were tightly contested. It's still a 50% country.
Mm-hmm.
People are divided right down the middle. And as long as they can love each other and live in disagreement, I think that's good. But I don't like the rhetoric that's coming out from the right and from Trump himself. It's just very, very, very dangerous. And it gives these vigilante groups on the right movement to do things that are wrong. So I'm going off topic, but I think it is linked to this whole thing about COVID-19 and vaccinations and such. It just shows again how deeply divided the United States is, especially around issues that may affect self-autonomy.
Talking about crazy people, we just actually had an incident in Kitchener where pro-vaxxer attacked an anti-vaxxer. Buddy was standing at Bridgeport and Weber with a sign saying "Don't get the vaccines," and somebody ran out with an axe. Got a murder.
I didn't
Not a
even
murder.
hear about this.
Yeah, man. It's in the record. Look it up. It's fun. Bridgeport and Weber, that big plaza was Sobeys.
Wow, that's like
Yeah, man.
3
Axe,
blocks from
some sort of an axe. I don't remember what exactly, but it was some sort of variation of an axe. You got to assault with a weapon, all kinds of stuff. But talking about vaccines, I was just going to ask. Obviously, if you are starting to giving them out in Christmas time, you said, or whatever, right? Springtime.
Yeah.
Do you feel confident that it's ready to be given to people? Because as I remember, we've talked last time that they stopped SARS research, right? And they picked it up from there. So now, do you think in 5 months or whatever it was, 8 months, do you think it's ready now to be given to like vast amount of people?
Yeah. So I have to declare my bias. I've received every vaccine available known to mankind since I've been born, and my parents made sure I got every single vaccination. I got the BCG one for TB, which probably didn't work when I was born. So when I was very young, so polio vaccine. I have a big scar on my arm from the polio vaccine. I received the influenza vaccine every year. But people are concerned. We have to acknowledge why they're concerned. In fact, in my hospital, for the first time ever, we are not mandating the vaccine. So the vaccine is going to be available to all of our healthcare professionals, but it's not mandated. So if I feel I don't want the vaccine, I will not receive it. So it's not being mandated. That's a big deal because the influenza vaccine, for example, is mandated. Every year you have to get it or you can't work in the hospital. So they've recognized that there's not a lot of long-term studies with these vaccines. But what you got to remember is that the biology behind the vaccine is similar to vaccines that have been present for decades. You're injecting a protein that stimulates an immune response that attacks that protein, and that protein mimics the virus, right? So you're basically causing the production of an antibody against the virus that will protect you from getting an infection. And we have to trust our scientists. We have to trust the process, because I personally believe vaccinations have revolutionized the care of our population. You know, we've been able to prevent things like measles and smallpox and other polio and other diseases that can have devastating consequences. So I'm pro-vaccination. I'm going to be getting my vaccine within a few days. I'm just going to take it, and you know, there are risks. Of course, there are risks to getting vaccinations. You can get reactions. You can have, but I have no hesitation, and I'm going to recommend to everyone I know that if you know that they should consider getting vaccinated.
I just wanted to make sure for anybody that listens and for you too that I am so not against the vaccines. I understand the vaccines work, and I'm actually dating somebody who's studying virology. So I understand all of that. But me, being a paranoid human being that I am, I am questioning the vaccine. I'm not questioning the scientists that made the vaccine. I'm not questioning the vaccine. I'm questioning the owner of the company that pays the scientists. And do you think there's a possibility that they could play with it and do something to the population? This is just out there in the conspiracy theories, right? But do you think it could be something like that?
Yeah,
What I'm trying to say, what do you think is the possibility of vaccine being played with from the
corrupted, basically?
Corrupt from the place that it's being made from to the place where people are given it?
Yeah, so we do live in a capitalist society, and there are people who are going to generate profits from the vaccine. Unfortunately, you know, that's just the way it works. That's the way our system works. But I have full faith that everyone's intentions are good. That the vaccine has been created with the utmost attention to quality, and that it's being stored and manufactured in an ethical way, and that it's going to be distributed in a safe way. You know, and we have to keep that in mind, because for the Pfizer vaccine, it has to be kept in cold storage, and it has to be transported very, very carefully. You'll need 2 vaccinations separated by a few weeks apart. There's other companies that are making the vaccine as well, all of which have been tested in the short term very extensively. But, you know, you're right, we don't have long-term data, but again, we have long-term data with other similar types of vaccinations. And I'm not concerned about long-term consequences. Short-term, you can have reactions to it. Coming back to this, so I don't think all these conspiracy theories about the vaccine quality and what it's going to do to people and bad effects, I don't put any weight on that at all. Saying that, if you do not want to get vaccinated, you don't have to. This will not be mandated by any government agency, by the government, or, you know, this will be by choice. So people can keep that in mind. And if they're honestly not comfortable receiving the vaccine, they don't. I encourage them that they should. And you know, all you have to do is see patients who've become critically ill with this virus, and that should change their mind. At the very least, I believe that our older patients over the age of 65, or patients with comorbidities like chronic lung disease and heart disease and such, who often get more sick from the virus than others, should be vaccinated.
So what you're basically saying is, if you're afraid that you're about to get microchipped, please don't get vaccinated and leave the rest of the doses to the rest of us who want them.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. This is not a way to control society. I mean, and it's so strange, right? Because we all know people who think that. And some of these people, I think, are smart people. I know are smart people and are interesting, you know, people, and people from professional lives. And It's just I don't know where these conspiracy theories come from.
That's
But
that's the thing. This some of the sources, some of the sources that I look at are pretty credible. That's why it's like in my mind, I just like I said, I like to be paranoid already, so it pushes me over the edge, right? So that's why I wanted to clarify with you and hear a real opinion of a real doctor that's here right beside me in London. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not something
yeah,
you see on the internet.
you also have to, yeah, no, you also have to look at. You're probably looking at credible sources. So let's say you're looking at medicine X, and the side effect rate of medicine X is 80%. That's probably true. But remember, those side effects include an itchy arm. You thought your eye watered a little bit. You for one set. So every single potential side effect. So if I give you a placebo pill, a sugar pill, and I give your counterpart the medicine, you guys may have the same side effect rate. Do you understand?
Huh.
So a placebo pill, which is a pill with nothing in it, causes about 30% of people will have a side effect from it. Because it's the power of the mind. It's the power of the mind.
Thinking
side effect rates are very high. Side effect rates are very high when you report them. And so if you're looking at a website that says the vaccine has a side effect rate of 60%, it's actually correct. But those side effects, most of them are trivial. Right?
Well, never mind the fact that if one person out of 100 million gets a headache, and you have to put that disclaimer in there, they don't put the percentages of each side effect, and that's where people go off the rails. I don't want something that's going to give this big long list to me. To me, it's not going to do that to you. You're not the 1%. Stop it.
Yeah, and that's why for many drug studies, I don't know if they do these I don't think they do it for vaccine studies. Maybe they do, but they're placebo controlled. So if I'm doing a study of drug X, seeing if it helps treat high blood pressure, what I do is I take 50,000 patients, 25,000 of them get the drug, and 25,000 get an empty sugar pill or placebo pill. And when you look at the side effect differences between the two, they're often they're high, but they're identical. So all I'm saying is side effects are reported conditions. Many of them are trivial. Yes, can you get a serious side effect from a vaccine, like from the COVID-19 vaccine? Absolutely. You can get a horrible allergic reaction, maybe, or you could get Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neurological condition. But that's rare as hen's teeth. Like, this is from a guy who I've received every vaccine known to mankind that can cause a side effect. So you have to keep that in mind. Right. And remember, personally,
are you likely
I'm not going to. I'm sorry?
I said, can you and are you likely to are completely different beasts, is the point.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. Are you sure you're American? Wow, you're speaking like Canadian.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, everyone gives it to Amy.
No, but I agree. Amy's
right,
absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And I think you have to keep that in mind. And it'll be really interesting, Amy, to look at what percentage of Canadians get vaccinated versus what percentage of Americans end up getting vaccinated, because it'll just be fascinating to see. I mean, I would predict that Canadians are much more open and to vaccinations than the Americans are, but it'll be interesting to see.
So when you read the statistics about vaccinations, and the prevailing belief or data says that if you don't get like a 70% clip of a population getting the vaccine, you can toss out even dreaming of talking about any kind of herd immunity. So when you get into the, hey, maybe 50% of people get it, maybe 40%, maybe 60%, not a super high percentage. At what point does that actually matter? I mean, if you have so many people that are resistant, what matters?
Yeah. So Amy, great question. I have to be honest with you. I'm a kidney doctor, to be honest. I'm an internal medicine doctor. So I'm not an immunologist or a virologist or a public health expert, but I would tell you that that's true. If you want to get herd immunity for a specific condition, you want to see that 70% mark for vaccinations. But I think of it a little bit differently. I'd be super happy if we got 80% or 90% of our nursing home residents, our older patient population, our patients over the age of 65, our patients with COPD and chronic lung diseases and other conditions. If we can get that number up, like to 70, 80%, and protect them that way, I think that would be a huge success. And then if we can do, a smaller degree of the general population, I think we would get tremendous benefit from the vaccination. But you're right. To get herd immunity, you really need to get the majority of people vaccinated. But the other thing we got to remember is there are people getting infections too. And at least in the short term, those people will be immune. What worries me a little bit, and this is the unknown, is that we all get coronavirus infections. Right? Like you guys have had coronavirus infections, not COVID-19, but you've all had colds probably from coronavirus. You do get immunity to it. So when you get the cold, your immune system builds up and you get immunity to it. But then you lose it a year later and you get the same bloody cold. So these are things I don't know. Like I'd have to ask an expert in virology to say, 1 year from now or 2 years from now, do we need to be revaccinated again? And how long will the immunity last? And those are things I do not know, and I'm not sure if anyone really knows. And the other thing that obviously has me concerned is the new COVID-19 variant from the UK, where there's a mutation in the virus, right? Will the vaccine even work against a mutated COVID-19 virus? These are questions I apologize, I don't have the answers to. So outside of my area of expertise, but I don't know if anyone has those answers yet.
So
but
just
saying that, listen.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, just as a medical professional,
Okay.
you don't have to be like obviously an immunologist for this one, but what do you say to the people who, on one hand, go, well, I'm not afraid of vaccines, but everything surrounding this one is so crazy, and maybe I take it now, but who knows what's going to happen in 5 years? Versus the people that say, yeah, but we don't know anything about COVID-19 other than 10 months. If I get that, how do I know what's going to happen in 5 years? Like, what do you say to those two different groups of people?
Yeah, so I approach it a bit differently. First of all, for my younger, I consider myself young, so I'm 49, so I don't know, that's probably debatable. But people in kind of my age group and younger, people in my age group and younger, I say, listen, we've had vaccines around for decades. None of us have 3 heads or 5 arms or 6 legs, and none of us are we're living longer than ever. Our aging, when I started med school, I'm pretty sure the average age for a guy was around 78, and for a woman is 82. Those are much higher now. So we're living longer. We have pretty good qualities of life, even into our older years for the most part. So vaccines have not caused any damage to our bodies. And the vast majority of people are vaccinated against a variety of things. So the technology is the same. We have to have trust in the medical system. For the older ones, I say, for my patients who are 65, 70, 75, 80, how much more life do you have left? Would you rather live longer without COVID-19 and not have a risk of getting that infection, which would be very high mortality or higher mortality? You know what I mean? Because if you're worried about an effect 10, 15 years from now, you don't have that much time anyways. You might as well get the vaccine and have a good quality of life. And I'm joking.
That's real.
I do approach it a bit differently. But I do approach it a bit differently. I mean, for my patients who are 80 plus, they don't have to fucking worry about what's going to happen to them 20 years from now, right? You know what I mean? And so, so for me, and people who are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, I say, you know what? We've trusted vaccines. Many of us have trusted vaccines for decades. Our qualities of life are better because of it. We have less disability because of it. For many of things like polio and such, the technology is very similar. We should all get it. And for our older patients, if I have to get into argument with them, they're worried about what's going to happen 5 or 10 years. I said, you know what? You'd be lucky if you're still alive 10 years from now. Let's make sure whatever life you have is without being on a breathing machine and without having bad consequences of a bad viral infection. And I think we need to have that kind of approach. And if people still feel strongly about it, then don't get it. We're even in our hospital system, we're not mandating it. So we cannot force people to get something that they don't want.
The other number that people keep talking about is the survival rate and the death rate so low and the recovery rate being so high.
Here we go.
And what are they not getting about this? Because people, I mean, I get that it's not like
what they're not getting is they're not caring about poor old granny, granddad, your aunt, your uncle, your the cousins battling cancer, your friend who's on chemotherapy. That's who you're going to fucking kill, right? I mean, that's what people have to get. They have to get that. That's what drives me nuts. I agree. If my son gets COVID-19, he'll just get a run. Chances are he'll just get a runny nose, and but then when he goes visits his grandmother, grandfather, they could die, right? And we need to protect our older vulnerable. We're all going to get old one day. Would you like young people to tell you when you're in your 70s, oh, they've had a life, who cares? I don't want my quality of life to be impaired for them.
And you know what's crazy, though,
Right?
is that if
So
this was a disease that impacted the younger people, our grandparents would be doing everything they could to bend over backwards for us.
Yeah, exactly. Amy, you're still 100% right. Unfortunately, and I don't want to get too much into the philosophy of things, but we seem to be losing that respect and caring nature of caring for others as we get into the younger generations. And I don't know how much social media plays into that, and being on your cell phone plays into that, and not interacting with people as much plays into that. I was in a funeral procession recently, and with the cars we're driving to the. This was before COVID. Sorry, when I say recently, probably like a year and a half ago, and we're driving in London, Ontario, here, the city. And all of the people, the men and women, or especially who are older, and these are people, they would stop, they would stare at the cars, and they'd take their hat off or put their arm on their chest until the procession passed. And then the young people, are just listening to their jamming and getting in the way of the procession and not caring, right? So there's definitely been a shift in the way people respect each other, and we become more selfish as the generations have gone. I'm probably more selfish than my grandfather was in such a way. We stopped caring about others, and I think that's a huge role. You're right. If it was young people who are dying, the grandparents would be the ones trying to protect us. Now that it's the grandparents that are at risk, young people are just complaining about their lives. Yeah, so, it's very, very frustrating.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I think ultimately the other part of that question was, you have so many people, like, forget the old people, or don't forget the old, forget that part of the equation, that you have so many people going, oh, but the death rate. Like, forget who it is that's dying. The death rate's only 1%. I think the rest of that question was, why is it so hard to educate, especially large groups of people? Why, sure, the death rate of 1% seems not so bad when we're having all these measures to control it, and we have all this medicine, we have all this technology. Why is it a big deal then? Why is it so hard to educate people about all of the other problems that can come from this? It's not just that you might die. And I might also add that, like, all of these other, like, syphilis type, things that people, like, fall over backwards to not get and to get, like, pre-treated for, if there's any kind of preventative for. People run around and get all kinds of stuff done to avoid being sick from things that will never kill you. But then at the same time, we're like, but COVID's only 1% death rate. Why are you so scared?
Amy, can I step in there, because that's a beautiful statement and 100% statement. It's a good question, because you have to remember 1% of what. So let me go back to SARS. Do you remember SARS, Amy, or were you too young?
I was working at an outpatient lab swabbing people when SARS happened.
So you remember it then, right? So SARS had a death.
You do recall?
No, I'm just saying, SARS had a death rate of around 30%, I think. Okay. Wow. So why were we not? I'll put the question to you just as a kind of a teaching moment. So SARS has a death rate of around 30%. Maybe I could be wrong, 20 or 30%. COVID-19 has a death rate of 1%. Can any of you tell me why we have way more hoopla over COVID-19 than SARS?
I mean, in reality, or?
No, what is the science?
Taking a shot in the dark. Is it because it's
it's a common sense reason.
Okay,
so you're on the right track, but why? SARS was pretty worldwide too. I mean, it was spread.
No, because it's much, much, much more contagious.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what you got to look at is SARS was not as contagious, so we were able to contain it way more easily without even any major shutdowns, right? I mean, I barely remember. I don't think I ever met anyone or saw a patient. I was very busy at the time with SARS, but it was so uncommon. We had maybe one case in London. There was a handful of cases in Toronto, right? And it was scary because the death rate was high, but it was not as contagious. Okay, so COVID-19 is so contagious. I'm worried about getting it from you guys over the phone. I mean, that's how contagious it is, right? You basically look at somebody and it's contagious, right? So the problem is the 1% mortality is very important because it's in a disease that spreads so easily, right? And that's why you have over 300,000 deaths in the United States, right? And the other thing is, what people don't realize who say that, they've never seen someone die from SARS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from COVID-19. They've never seen someone die from COVID-19. It is an unpleasant, horrible experience. Also, those people have not seen what happens when your ICUs are full and you're sharing a breathing machine between two patients, like they were doing in Italy. Right. So that 1% mortality is huge because it's a huge number of patients that are infected, and that's why you're seeing deaths in the millions and millions worldwide. Is because of that. So that's the point. When people say that, you say, yeah, it's a 1% death rate, but it's so contagious that 1% is going to end up being a huge number, and it's going to affect our grandmothers and our grandfathers and our uncles and our aunts and our fellow brothers and sisters who have comorbidities, who are on immunosuppression. It's a disaster that way.
Mm-hmm. I was in Shoppers Drug Mart. Obviously, Kirill and Faisal, you guys know what that is. Amy, you don't. And other listeners that don't. It's like a large pharmacy with like a health and beauty area and like a small grocery area, to give you an idea what it is.
It's Walgreens, isn't it?
Well, is that what it is? I was going to say CVS, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was in there yesterday, and a guy comes in with no mask, and the woman standing at the beauty counter says, "Excuse me, you can't come in here without a mask." He starts yelling at her right away. And he said that, this is all bullshit. This is all, we shouldn't have to wear masks. The government's trying to control us. And she said, spend a night in ICU and tell me if you feel the same. He yells back at her, I saved over 10 people's lives before COVID was a thing. I don't know what the fuck that has to do with anything. And then he put his mask on afterwards. And he went past me. I was at the self-checkout. He went past me to the checkout. He had an open bottle of Fireball. For those that don't know what that is, it's a cinnamon-flavored liquor. It's disgusting. Yeah, okay. So this is the kind of intelligence we're dealing with. When you're out, have you witnessed any sort of, maybe not that exact thing, but, these anti-mask people? Yeah. Have you witnessed these people? Yes. And
I know
now
Amy has, for sure. Amy has, but not in the States. But not. I have to be honest. Canadians are amazing people. Like, yeah. And maybe it's I've been all over Ontario, and people are you guys know. I mean, Canadians are very patient people, and whenever I go into the grocery store and the people are lining up appropriately. Now, I know that butcher you gave me, the example you guys gave me, the butcher recently was out of keeping, but for the most part, Canadians are respectful people and they go by the rules. I think everyone would agree with me on that. But I've seen it, forget that. I go back to before you guys were born in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember being in university.
Whoa. Hold on.
Thank you. I turned 40 on Boxing Day.
Yeah.
But there's always been crazy people around. Like, remember when they banned cigarette smoking in the restaurants? And so I was at a restaurant, and this woman was screaming at the poor lady who was the receptionist, saying, "I can't believe you're not letting me smoke an A&W. You're taking away my rights. Who do you think you are?" But so there's always going to be the oddball person who does that. Yeah. But I think for the most part in Canada, people are respectful.
I remember when you could walk through the mall having a cigarette, and I remember the restaurants, there'd be smoking and non-smoking. It would just be one room. They just split it in half. I'm like, the smoke's still going over there. I remember that as a little kid. Both my parents smoked when I was younger too, and we'd sit in the smoking area. And obviously, as a kid, I didn't know any better. But thinking back on it, I'm sitting there eating supper, and it's just a blue haze hanging over my head. Healthy living.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what's coming back. I think I've seen very little backlash. Of course, it's going to happen. Some people are going to get frustrated. I know I have friends who have a hard time breathing with the mask, and they get panic attacks, like people who have anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's hard for people. I'm not going to deny that, right? But the vast majority of people are respectful and do it, compared to the States, for sure, right? People are very respectful. Everyone's wearing a mask. Everyone is doing their best to social distance. There are exceptions, I know. But I think that's why in Canada we have done a better job. We haven't had, although we've had crises and outbreaks, we haven't had anywhere close to what happened in Europe or in the United States. It's because Canadians are amazing. That's why. So I think the whole world is going to get through this. This will pass. Just like in 1918, the swine flu did pass. You should go back. You guys should Google the 1918 swine flu and see. It's eerie because people look like us. They all have the same types of masks on, and we're trying to practice the same thing. So it's really amazing that 100 years later we're going through the same thing. But we're going to come through this, and I'm very hopeful for the future. I just think what we're trying to do with all of these things is not take away people's rights, but to stem the tide so that our healthcare system doesn't get overwhelmed, so that people don't die because they can't access a ventilator, and so that we can hopefully get the vaccine administration going and get through this in the next 6 to 9 months. That's my hope.
So if we get everybody vaccinated, right? Not everybody, but let's say 60-70% the goal, right? How long do you think the lockdowns will last? How long do we need? For the herd immunity to work, you said 80% needs to be vaccinated, right? Something like that. So how long would
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah,
how
you
long do
guys
you
are
think
right.
it will?
So I think.
How long do you think it's going
Yeah,
to
sorry
take
to
to
interrupt.
vaccinate? How long do you think it's going to
Yeah,
take to vaccinate that many people, and how long do you think the lockdowns will go on after? Because you said there's two courses of vaccines, right? There's one, and then a couple of weeks later there's
yeah,
another. So
yeah.
this might stretch into another 3, 4, 5 months.
I think it'll take us till September or October of this year. It's going to take a lot. It's not easy to
Oh
do,
wow,
and the vaccines are not being produced they're trying their best, but it's hard to manufacture the numbers of vaccines that are needed worldwide. So I think we are going to look at probably being able to achieve close to those targets in the fall.
Let's talk conspiracies and get back to some of these batshit crazy people. Bill Gates, why and where does he fit into this?
I think he's had very significant. A lot of his charities, I think, have to do with helping people get vaccinated and vaccination programs. He's very passionate about that. And I think people feel that he has a monetary reason to do that. They feel he's invested money. I don't even think that's true. But this is what I've heard through the grapevine. The guy's already filthy rich, and he's donating all of his estate to charities. He's gonna, when he dies, he's gonna have the vast majority of his money go to things. He doesn't live a lavish lifestyle. He doesn't drive Lamborghinis and Porsches. He's a very humble guy, actually, in many ways. So I don't know if I believe that he wants to take over the world and all this other crap that's going on. So I think it's just vaccinations is something he's always been passionate about, and I don't, all of this thing that he's getting personal gain. I mean, how much more rich can people want to be or get? So I don't believe that. I think it's one of those other conspiracy theories that's going around.
The thing about him, I don't think it's about getting rich. The conspiracy about him is getting the power, right? And also, as a smart man, Bill Gates being a smart man, he was advocating that the overpopulation is a problem. And people are grabbing onto the fact that he's developing a vaccine because dropping a bomb on a city would attract too much attention, right? So people are saying that he's getting involved in a vaccine to sterilize a bunch of people so they can't multiply.
Kirill told you he's paranoid.
That's pretty far fetched. But I think, we as healthcare providers, but also government agencies, have to earn the trust of the population. Okay, because remember, you have to look at how dark our history is, right? You guys, do you remember what the Nazis were doing in World War II? Right?
No.
They were doing horrible experiments on our Jewish brothers and sisters, injecting them God knows what, doing horrible experiments. But our patients of African background there were programs where they were being given diseases as well, syphilis and other populations, special needs populations, were having forced sterilization. So we have to accept some responsibility for people not trusting the government, right? So the government's got it hard because historically there have been some bad things that have happened, right, back in the day. So in part, we have to earn the public's trust, and you do that with education, and you do that with being transparent. It was only until recently that we were doing forced sterilization of people with mental health issues or cognitive disabilities and such. It wasn't that even that long ago, even in Canada, I think. So we need to earn the trust, and I do think that those conspiracy theories are crazy, though. I do, but at the same time, we don't. I don't think we get anywhere if we call them crazy. I think we have to just say, you know what? Let's talk about it and let's try and educate them. That's the only way I think we can move forward on taking care of on taking into account people's fears and concerns.
And how do you educate people that argue the point? They say it was made in a lab to kill people, or they say, somebody ate a bat and spread it all over the world. Well, how do you educate those people?
Yeah, and those are ones that I'll probably skip.
I was going to say, don't bother with us.
You don't need education. Just go on your way, please. You know what I mean, right?
They didn't bring a pencil; they're already out.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. There's people who have so many extremes. Those are less than 1% of the population. Though people who are at the extreme of thinking, you'll never be able to get through to them. But you'll be able to get through to their cousins and their uncles and their aunts, right? Who are more normal. So I think you have to spend your effort in the right place with the right people, and if somebody's too far gone in their thinking, you just let them. Don't expend energy on them. I think the vast majority of people will be open to at least talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I first had you on a few years back, that was the Rear Naked Choke radio days. We talked combat sports. We talked Cyborg Santos's head being caved in, some medical stuff. My co-host, the actual originator of Rear Naked Choke Radio, we don't really ask for fan questions or anything like that with these shows, but I figured this is such a big thing. You know what? A few hours before the show, I put a few posts up, and we got one worth asking that's actually from Joe Rizzo, the creator of Rear Naked Choke Radio, who spoke to you before. And Amy's going to read that to you real quick, and then we're going to get into some fun and talk about UFC.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so it's a little lengthy, but because Joe had COVID, he has since recovered. He had a pretty easy, as could be for most people, go of it. Lucky for him. He says, or asks, for those of us that have had COVID and later tested positive for antibodies, it's pretty obvious at this point that there is little to no risk of reinfection now and in the immediate future. The years of recorded history of man versus viruses like this one appear to show that regular immunity is somewhere between 2 to 3 years, of course, differing from person to person. So why are we so quick to eschew common sense in regulations and never take those infected with the same tact as we shall with those who are receiving vaccinations?
So no, a couple of things. So even within my hospital system, we are not vaccinating people who've been infected. Like for our nurses and doctors who were infected, they're not going to be required to vaccinate or even being offered. They won't even be offered the vaccination, because they will have antibodies that are already protecting them, right? The question is, and I don't know the answer to this, the question is when those antibody levels wane 1 year, 2 years later, what do we do then? And do we revaccinate? And I think we're going to learn how often we will need to be vaccinated. Like, for influenza, the strain changes and we're vaccinated every year. How often will we need to be vaccinated for a virus like COVID-19 is something that I don't know. But people who have been infected, let's say I get a COVID-19 infection, I have a cold. 2 weeks later, I've been asymptomatic for 24 hours, and I just go back into the workplace. They let me go back into work. I don't have to take any, I still have to follow precautions with patients and stuff like that. But I'm considered not at risk of either giving the infection or receiving it. So in answer to Joe's question, I think if you were infected, you should not be mandated to get the vaccine. You are immune. The question is, how long are you immune for? Joe may even know more than me. Maybe he read that 2 to 3 year thing. I heard it can be as short as 1 year. So how long are you immune for? And then what is the role of checking antibody levels a year later? Or do you just get vaccinated regularly every year or two? That's something I don't know.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And I'll make sure Joe hears that and gets that. Now, let's have some fun. Actually, before I say that, we're asking you all these questions. You're good enough to give us answers, give us time. Is there anything you wanted to touch on this COVID thing, whether it be strictly to Ontario, Canada, or worldwide? Is there any other thing you wanted to get out there on this show before we move along and just have some fun conversation?
No, I think you know what, I just want everyone to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and keep the hope that we will overcome this. And I'm very, very, very hopeful that in the next 6 to 9 months we'll have more clarity on when we can return to normal, travel freely. I honestly miss visiting the United States. I love going there. So when can I travel without any concerns and such. And I'm very hopeful that things will start to improve in that time period. So I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday.
Very good. Amy, is that you thundering away on your keyboard over there?
It's not. I was actually.
Oh, that's me. My bad. My bad. That's me. My
I
bad.
heard one of you as I was finishing up what he was saying there. I was like, oh, come on, guys.
My bad. That's me.
Okay. UFC. Now, here's a question I don't know why I never asked you before. Because I had an idea. And I was thinking about this morning. And I was like, if someone asked me that, I really wouldn't have the correct or proper answer. What is your actual job title and duties for the UFC when they're in? Was it just Ontario or is it all of Canada?
Yeah, no, just Ontario. So I'm not employed by the UFC. I'm the head physician for the Sports Commissioner of Ontario. So for combat sports in Ontario, including boxing, kickboxing, pro MMA, and such, I oversee the medical logistics and the overall medical principles and the rules that we follow for the province of Ontario. So when the UFC comes to Ontario, I'm usually one of the physicians there, and then we help supervise the events and take care of the athletes, but also just in terms of establishing our protocols and stuff. That's something that I work with the government to establish.
Okay, and so you're looking out for the safety of these fighters, and we see a lot of celebrity stuff going on lately. Do you have any say in the sanctioning of a fight, like on the getting their licenses and their medicals done?
So only as a medical person. So I don't sanction fights based on ability, based on age. You know what I mean? That's up to the Sports Commissioner of Ontario and his staff to organize. I will only, interfere or get involved if I have medical concerns around someone's personal health, around an abnormal MRI of the brain, abnormal blood tests, any risks of infections and such. That's where I get involved.
You've obviously then seen. I just want to navigate to this real quick. You've obviously seen the Tyson and Roy Jones fight, right? And the pre-card for that, the YouTuber that is what is his name? Jake Paul. That's what it is. Yeah. Now he's calling on McGregor, and now he's calling on Mayweather. What do you think that's going to be like?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I have to say the Logan. What's his name? Logan, or I can't remember the guy's name. The internet
Logan
sensation.
Paul or Jake Paul.
I saw that.
Brothers.
I watched that. Jake Paul. Yeah, Jake Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, Jake.
I watched that fight. He's actually got some skill. He's got skill. He's got a very good jab, very good posture balance. But
he's been boxing 2 years though. 2 years, and he's calling on Mayweather. You know what I mean? And he's calling on McGregor.
Crazy. That's crazy. But just as a general comment, the guy looks athletic, and he looks like he's got some ability based on limited opposition.
For a bar fight, maybe.
But I'm against. But absolutely, I am against sanctioning fights that are lopsided. But you know what? We do it all the time, and I'm not me personally. I'm against this, where we fly in these poor guys who probably I don't even who come in as boxers from Mexico or another country, who are clearly not at the same level. Let's say the Canadian fighter, not the same amateur pedigree. They may not even be in shape, and they get beat up. And you see these in boxing. I'm sick and tired of seeing lopsided boxing fights. In fact, I've given up. I used to be a huge boxing fan. I don't even watch it that much anymore. And I have to admit, I succumbed, and I bought that pay-per-view for the Tyson Roy Jones fight.
Roy Jones?
Terrible. Tyson looked good. Tyson actually looked good. Roy Jones looked horrible. And and it was kind of sad to see. Actually, I know people thought it was fun. It was sad.
As a doctor, as a doctor, does Tyson look like? I'm sorry. I just want to say one quick question. While we're still on Tyson, as a doctor and as a health professional, does Tyson look like he's full of roids to you?
So let me tell you something. I won't answer that question, but I'll give you another. There was another very well-known heavyweight who tried to come back in Canada. He's 52 years of age. I think he was sanctioned to have one fight. You probably be able to tell his name. He's fought all the big guys from the Tyson era, including Tyson himself. And we basically did not allow him to proceed because of the age and lack of ability. So we have stopped. And I was involved in that from the medical perspective.
Wow.
And I had witnessed his previous knockout when he was five. So I put the gauntlet down, saying that I don't. And if you want to get the lawyers involved, you can. You can appeal. He can appeal, but we're not going to allow him to proceed. Okay. And it's very similar to Tyson, and his situation would have been very similar to Mike Tyson. I don't want to name him. To Mike Tyson and to Roy Jones. So
I think
we have
a
stopped
pretty
that
good
kind
idea
of
you're
charade.
talking
It's a
about.
charade. Who wants to watch that shit? I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, no
and
shit.
I feel bad. I feel ashamed that I did tune in for Tyson and Tyson and Roy Jones, mainly because I thought Tyson would run over him. But honestly, it was an exhibition. First of all, it wasn't even a real fight. It was an exhibition, right? And that's why it was called a draw. They may not have said it was an exhibition, but it was definitely exhibition rules, and they were not hitting each other to the head that much. And Tyson was basically doing body work, and so it wasn't even a real fight.
And even
Right,
then,
so
Roy
you have to keep
Jones
that in
wanted
mind. That was
nothing
not
to
a
do with
thing.
that ever happening again, even though that was an exhibition.
Yeah.
Well, have you seen him holding his stomach afterwards?
I'm sorry?
Jones, no, I was just saying, obviously he didn't want another part of that, because did you see him holding his stomach afterwards? It's either liver or ribs, something snapped in there.
Yeah. Tyson was really working his body hard, and so Tyson was ready. It was nice to see Mike Tyson in good shape. I enjoyed that, but honestly, it was an exhibition. It wasn't a real fight. So, in summary, I don't think a fight like that will ever be sanctioned in Ontario. They've come close with a couple of heavyweights here. They let them fight, but that was short-lived, and I think we're putting these athletes at risk. Once you're above the age of 50. Probably even in your late 40s, you have no business in a pro ring.
Mm-hmm. With you were just saying about boxing, even at a level, higher level, more well-known person, you pump the brakes on that match. Has lower level, I mean, still professional, but not as well-known, not as big events, obviously. Boxing or even MMA tightened up a bit ever since what happened to the tragic death of Tim Hague in 2017. I know that wasn't Ontario, but
it wasn't Ontario for sure. But I think people took notice for sure. What happened to Tim Hague was tragic, horrible,
very,
and we need to prevent those types of tragedies from happening. And when we see them, I think it's so important not to blame anyone, to say that Alberta was Alberta, because we all could have been there. Any commission could have approved that fight. And so we need to learn from when these happen, so we can prevent tragedies like that from happening again. In mixed martial arts, I really think in Ontario, the matchups have been excellent. For the most part, there's been I can't even remember the last time I saw a fight that should not have been approved, in terms of ability and difference in experience. In boxing, I still see, concerns that people are being brought into Canada from other countries that have no business in a boxing ring. But I think it's hard for the commission to make sure that their credentials are real, that their records are real. It's so hard to be able to do that because there's a lot of corruption as well. So not in Canada, but in the other countries where these records are being posted. So that's a tougher question, but that's why boxing is falling in popularity, because it's just you never see good matchups. And honestly, in Canada, that's why Canadian boxers are not going as far as they should. We're not making great champions of the future because they're not fighting higher level competition. They're not improving. They keep fighting, they build up their record to 20-0 maybe, but it's all fighting people with sub 500 records who have no business being in the ring with them. And then they step up finally to fight someone in the top 10 and they get annihilated. So we need to do a better job for the sport, for improving the level of competition of our fighters, but also for protection of the poor people coming from other countries who are coming to get beat up. And boxing has been fraught with this problem for too long now, and that's why people are, I think, gravitating more towards watching MMA.
Mm-hmm. And what was the last event you worked? Was it the BTC event in Kitchener? Did you work that?
So oh gosh.
Or February. Sorry, I don't know why I said
December.
December.
Event in Toronto.
February.
So Jamie Champion, one of my friends there, promoted an event in Toronto right before COVID in downtown. I unfortunately was on call at the hospital, so I missed that one. I heard it was a great event. And
That
then
was at
you know,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and then there was one in Windsor where I wasn't the one in Windsor just prior to that with the Laramie brothers.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time, and as you know, since March of last year, we've had no events. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm having a hard time remembering which one I did last.
Yeah, Krill and I, we covered the BTC event in Kitchener at the auditorium, and that was February 28th of this year. And we were just talking about the other night that was like, God, that's the last time. Because on the show, we're covering a vast majority of things, but a lot of it has to do with health stuff, combat sports, and hip hop and battle rap. So we're talking about covering a concert or a battle rap event or another MMA event. And I was like, you know what? The last thing that we got to do was February 28th. It's been almost a full year. We have got to do nothing. None of that fun stuff that the media credentials get you.
So I think you might know, I run a charity event every year called Showdown in the Downtown. And for a couple of them, we've had pro MMA events.
Yep.
I'm really tempted. Last year, I had to change. We were going to do a pro MMA event at Budweiser Gardens, and I had to change it to a virtual concert with Our Lady Peace. And now, this year, I am investigating whether I'll be able to do a pro MMA event, even virtually, in September.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'd love to do that. I'm going to see if I can do it. You guys should come down if I can.
Certainly.
And we'll get you in there. But I'm still exploring whether it's even a possibility. I think I can arrange most of the COVID-19 testing and all that sort of thing, but it's still the commission, and it's kind of awkward because I work with the commission, but I have to talk to the commission to see if it's something that they're even willing to look into.
Well, hopefully that can work out. And yeah, anything that we can do to help as far as promotion or getting the word out there, always stay in touch with me, because anything we can do to help you, help with that cause. You got a platform right here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
Yep. I recently saw a picture of you and a few nurses in an office, and there was, I think, like some martial arts stuff, maybe a Bruce Lee poster. Is that your office?
Yeah, so it's my office. Yeah,
That's your
those are all posters. Yeah.
How long does a doctor have to work in a hospital before they can start putting pictures up with some of the most biggest badasses in the world?
Yeah, no, it's I've had that office for several years now, and I just put up stuff from my involvement in combat sports, and it just reminds me that when having a bad day, it kind of cheers you up a bit to see all the cool things that I've been able to see and do. And so those are all those were actually a picture with my residents. So those are all junior doctors who were training to be kidney doctors. So we're all rounding, and we just took a quick picture. So I love working with the young doctors. It's amazing being involved in their training and such. So that was good times.
It must help too if they're a fan of MMA. You take those ones under your wing, give them a little more special attention.
And there you go.
Wait,
there you go.
Right.
Everybody has their own, preferences in life, I suppose. But what possessed you to decide, hey, kidneys, where it's at for me?
You know what? I love internal medicine. And internal medicine is an area where you specialize in many different systems.
Right.
But after you do your 3 years of internal medicine, you can even subspecialize further. And I think the reason I chose kidney disease is they are the most complicated patients. So when you have advanced kidney disease, often many parts of your body are not working well. You get a variety of blood work abnormalities that are super complicated. You often need complicated technologies like dialysis, which there's many different forms of dialysis to clean the poisons from the body when the kidneys stop working. And then you have interesting immunologic situations where you try and find transplants for patients so that they can overcome their kidney disease and get back to kind of a normal life. And you follow the patients forever. So it's unlike other specialties where you fix their problem and they go back to the family doctor. We follow our patients for the long term. So I always loved that. I always loved seeing my patients getting married, having children, getting their kidney transplant, different important phases of their life. So I find that super rewarding. And so it's a complexity, but also the longitudinal follow-up that I get to have with my patients.
Cool. I just always am curious there's so many specialties, right? And like, I was one of those people that I'm like, hey, let me be an EMT, let me work ER, let me completely burn out in under 6 months, because that's what we all do. And then you have these other people that are like doing what you do that I can't even imagine. And I hear you talk and I know what you do. And I'm just like, how can you? I feel like that's more stressful than like emergency stuff because of what you're saying. Like you're with these people their whole lives.
Yeah, and Amy, also, I think you sound like kind of like me that you enjoy everything that you're exposed to. So I think that plays a big role because I loved every aspect of every religion that I took part in. And so when you like everything, you want to do everything. But then you're influenced by the people who teach you. And I think my teachers that were my kidney disease teachers were, when they took a special interest in me, I think that motivated me to also do that. So you're also influenced by your teachers. And I think that probably played a role as well.
There you have it. All right, Faisal, is there anything else you want to get in before we let you get out of here?
No, sorry. No, I think that's awesome, guys. I just want to thank you all for including me in your podcast. It was fun, and I really appreciate it.
It's a great time every time, and we'll be doing this, on a regular basis. Like, there's just so much to talk to you about. There's obviously the medicine stuff. Unfortunately, the COVID stuff that's going on right now, the combat sports stuff, and every time I talk to you, I find a little bit more and more about you. So I'm looking forward to doing this again in the new year. And until then, stay safe. Do you celebrate Christmas? I never know who does anymore.
Absolutely. I celebrate every religious holiday I can get my hands on.
Anything to have a glass of wine, right?
That's right. Exactly.
All right, my man. I really appreciate it. Have a happy new year and Merry Christmas. I'll be talking to you soon. And Amy, you're good, I take it?
I'm good.
I talk to you too much as it is. I need a break from you.
Kill yourself.
For Dr. Faisal Rehman, Amy Barton, Kirill Kasatskiy, I'm Jay Kelly. This is The Building Downtown. We out. Peace.
Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown. Building downtown.